We'll, yeah, I know, but I took a look at my clock here, and it says it's 2:30. So, okay, we are now, I want to welcome everybody to the LAFCo meeting for Wednesday, November 15th, 2017. And Gene, could you do roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Cosgrove. Commissioner Draper. Commissioner Martin. Commissioner O'Neill. Commissioner Rareback. Commissioner Slocum.
Here.
And Chair Horsley.
Here. And I do want to welcome our new special district representative, Katie Martin. And what special district are you from?
The San Mateo Mosquito and Vector Control Board.
Oh, okay. And Seppi Richardson is our alternate for our public representative on LAFCo. So welcome, Seppi. So, okay, now we have go on to item number 2, which is the consent agenda. And I understand, is there any?
I would request that item 2B be taken off the consent calendar because I have some questions first.
Okay. So there's now item number A and C. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Commissioner Draper, would you like to talk about the item number B, the LAFCO file 17-13, which is a proposed water extension by the city of Redwood City to a proposed single-family home?
So my question to staff is, does Redwood City have a plan for annexation? I understand they cannot annex now, but I'm drawing from my experience when I worked years ago for the city of Sunnyvale, where there was a very large unincorporated area in the middle of Sunnyvale called Rainer Park, but the city had a plan. And that was that bit by bit, as people needed things, like a connection, like something else, they would allow for that to happen as long as they agreed to a condition that said that should there be an annexation, then they wouldn't object to the annexation. And so the city had a plan, but it took 20 years. I worked there 10 years, and the annexation didn't occur. But today, I don't know when it was, but it was after I left, they got 51% of these agreements, and they went forward with annexation, of course, with consultation with the county, and now it's within the city. So they had a plan. So I know that maybe today it's not annexable, but that doesn't mean in the future. So my first question is there a plan?
The city's only indication of a plan for annexation is that they include the Emerald Lake Hills area in their planning area and their general plan, but there's not a adopted plan for action on how annexation would take place.
So my next question was, thinking back to my Sunnyvale experience, is that, well, first of all, I say I don't really know how we can approve these annexations without a plan. And again, it could be just sort of this vision plan that Sunnyvale had as an example that took a while for it to happen. So I'd like really more information from Redwood City when it really gets down to it as to what their actual plan is. And I do have another suggestion once we get there, but that's, in a little bit. But my first suggestion is we defer this until we hear from Redwood City as to more definitively what their plan is.
So you would want to defer the proposed water extension until we know their plan?
That would be one idea, is to defer it so that we could hear information. The second would be to approve it, but with the condition, and now I'll turn to the attorney, that we have an agreement or a condition of the water extension that should there be a annexation in the future, that the owner of this lot wouldn't object to that. And then in the interim, we asked Redwood City to tell us what their plan is.
I think personally would prefer your second alternative, mostly because I don't really like to delay the citizen because of the fact that the city hasn't taken effective action to consider, an annexation of these little islands. And actually, the long-term plan that's one of the reasons for LAFCo's existence is actually
Right.
to annex some of these islands. But to go a little further on this too, and I remember when I first got on the board of supervisors, and I think Supervisor Slocum's had the same issue, that we have little islands that are really on the periphery of city of Redwood City. So, for example, there's one that's called, it's in Cordilleras is the road, and there's a little water connection. It's called a Cordilleras Mutual Water District. There are a total of 18 homes, 18 connections, and it's right borders Redwood City. And oftentimes Redwood City is extending water around and about in that same area. And we've asked the city of Redwood City, doesn't it make more sense for you to take them into your system? If nothing else, they all come with their allocation of water. It's not as if they have to use Redwood City's water. They actually have water from SFPUC. And in fact, in that same area, there's a whole number of little houses that we don't really know. They're all individually connected to SF's PUC. SF really doesn't, the PUC doesn't really want to be in the business of retail. They want to be wholesaling to cities or larger water districts. So I would ask one of the things when I talk to mayors, past mayors of the city of Redwood City, and I've asked them to consider this annexation, at least take these, because 18 homes or 18 connections is just too small for them to manage. And what they've always told me is that, we'll do it if the county will work on the Bayfront Canal. Well, the county's working on a Bayfront Canal for them. So now it's time, if we're putting in money on their Bayfront Canal to take more water out of the eastern part of Redwood City. So I would like us to pursue that, first of all, when you talk about taking these individual homeowners, and I'd like them to consider actually at some point, what is their plan for annexation of these pockets? And there are a number of pockets that are completely surrounded by the city of Redwood City. And it's not that I'm mad at Redwood City. I love Redwood City. It's just that it makes sense. It makes sense that if Redwood City is providing water and sewer, really ought to be part of the city. So in any case, yes?
Through the chair, if I could provide a little background and also just get into the record of the meeting, that the application that is in question is LAFCo file 1713, which is proposed extension of water by City of Redwood City to a planned single-family home that's under permitting. This is a condition of building permit with the San Mateo County Planning Department, and it's 656 Park Road. And I have a few slides that I think will give some background to the discussion. The City of Redwood City is, could you go to the second slide? The City of Redwood City, all of the Bayside is covered under contracts with either cities or water districts.
I think all of our computers are dead. I can't see it on my screen.
I can see them.
Can you get it? I can't get it on mine. Unless. Aha! You have to turn it on.
Here you go.
But fortunately, I have Joshua, who's a little more tech savvy than me. Thanks.
So the slide that I want you to see is the slide that shows the sphere of influence for the City of Redwood City, and it what it shows is in light shaded areas are the unincorporated areas that are in the city's sphere. So there's North Fair Oaks, which is very large, Emerald Lake Hills, then smaller areas, Oak Knoll, Selby Lane, and there's a very small little rectangle called Kensington Square, which I've talked about before. That would be a great pilot project for an annexation, because when you drive through that area, it's very much, you can't tell that you're not in Redwood City. But one of the kind of complicating factors is that the water provider under the agreement with San Francisco Public Utility Commission for all of this area, with a few exceptions, is the City of Redwood City. And so whenever there's a new, either a subdivision or a vacant lot being developed, the water that would be provided is water by Redwood City. If you could now go to the first slide. This slide shows, So this shows 656 Park Road, and the closest city boundaries, and this is kind of a unique situation too, is you can see this non-contiguous area that's in city boundaries. And LAFCo law allows for cities to have non-contiguous areas in their boundaries if they're city-owned. So that's a city's water tank, water storage tank that's in city boundaries. And then below it, you see the balance of a part of a neighborhood. The next slide, the last one, provides an overview of the relationship of the parcel. So 656 Park, no, that was the right one. Yes. So as you can see, Redwood City is off to the right, and the shaded area is unincorporated Emerald Lake Hills, and 656 Park is nowhere near the city boundaries. This application actually got caught kind of late in the building permit process, and the applicant didn't know when he walked in the door at the planning department that he needed to get LAFCo approval to do so. So for today, and trying to address the bigger problem of not just unilaterally approving water extension when annexation isn't in the near future, I don't recommend that this project be delayed because it's construction of a new home. It's late in the game. I think that there are the transmittal letter to the city, if the commission approves this, can contain this discussion and what the commission's concerns are. It can point out this tool of San Carlos actually uses the irrevocable agreement to annex. So if San Carlos extends sewer into their unincorporated area because it's not contiguous, they require the property owner to sign an agreement of irrevocable agreement for annexation, and that's recorded, so it's tied to the property. There are also, I think, some other changes we can make to the policies. Number one, the commission could, it's not currently in the policy, the commission could put property owners, the city, water providers, and the county building department on notice that the commission in the future will not approve extension of service to a parcel that's contiguous. Because there have been times when the commission has done that because there was some mitigating circumstance. And I think if there's enough notice, then it'll be more productive. Right now, if someone goes into the planning and building department for a building permit, it's not discretionary. So they need to know that you may move forward with your building permit, but this is in an area that LAFCo regulates, and LAFCo might say no to your water connection. So you should go to the city and go for pre-zoning and get annexed.
So I just want to say, I'm not recommending that we say no to water connection. Right. I'm just saying that I would prefer that there be a condition placed on, if we can, if LAFCO can, because I know it was the city that was in my example that was placing on, and the other example was the city. If LAFCO can place that condition on approval, and then of course notification to Redwood City that we need to hear about their plans for future. And as I said, the reason I picked Raynor Park was that it was a big island, and that there were spots that needed things like this that was in the middle, and it took, I think, maybe 20 years before it actually happened. But there was a plan, and that's really what I'm talking about. Can LAFCO put such a condition on it?
You came to me just before the meeting and asked me to look at this. Very quickly looking at it, it's not 100% clear from the statute whether this specific condition could be imposed. If my understanding is correct, you're asking to impose a condition that the property owner may not object to any future annexation. Is that correct? There's definitely items in the conditions in the statute that could encompass that. I do have some concerns about sort of taking away their vote for a larger annexation, but I don't know specifically at this stage without further research whether that would be a concern. I don't see any reason why you couldn't put it in as a condition. I'm not sure how enforceable it is, quite frankly. I don't know if that assists you quite at this sort of short notice and making a determination as how to proceed in this particular case. But
can I make a suggestion that we actually approve this for this single-family home, and that you come back with a report to the LAFCo, to the commission, with our options. Commissioner Draper, is that satisfactory?
Well, if somebody makes a motion to approve, I'll be voting no, just so that it'll be on record, because I think that we need to have such a condition as a minimum, and I think we need a plan.
Okay, I understand. So, does anybody wish to
Sorry, go ahead.
comments? Yes.
I was going to make the motion, but go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask the question is, if we want to impose that policy, can we be proactive or do we have to be reactive? You know, a policy regarding the annexation.
It would actually be it's a little bit of both. Imposing the policy makes LAFCo more proactive in encouraging annexations. But the policy would only be implemented if we receive applications where applicants are willing to do that. Again, it's also not clear what role the city has. If it's a requirement that we would want the city to have as a condition of their water connection, or if it's a condition of I think we just need to put more thought into the mechanics of it.
Well, basically, my question is if we wanted to do that, would we have to wait for another application, or could we just kind of come out and say these are the new rules?
We would definitely want to do it before another application. We'd want to put everyone on notice.
Right. That seems fair. Yeah.
Katie?
Sorry. How often does this happen? I mean, how often do you get an application in Redwood City for new water line?
It can be as few as once a year up to 4 times a year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Is there a motion? Supervisor Slocum?
Thank you. Move that we approve LAFCO File 17-13, which is a proposed water extension by the City of Redwood City to proposed single-family home at 656 Park Road, pursuant to Government Code Section 56-133.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 In opposition?
Nay, that would be me, nay.
Thank you.
For Brown Act purposes, you do need to poll the commission based on the fact that it's not unanimous.
So, Jane, could you poll the commissioners?
Commissioner Cosgrove?
Yes.
Commissioner Draper?
No.
Commissioner Martin? Commissioner O'Neill?
Yes.
Commissioner Rarbach? Yes. Commissioner Slocum?
Yes.
Chair Horsley?
Yes. Thank you. So next item is for public comment for items not on the agenda. Gene, do we have any comments for not on the agenda?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Item number 4 is a LAFCO file 17-09. It's a proposed annexation of 2111 and 2121 Sand Hill Road to the city of Menlo Park, and this is a continuance. Is there any comments, Ms. Poyatos? Or
You have a staff report dated November 8th. When LAFCO processes annexations, and it's kind of a tiered approach, if we receive the application, it triggers, they've already gone through most of their pre-zoning. They apply to LAFCO, that triggers property tax exchange. We try to do our noticing and get the agenda kind of in sync so that it's not completely serial and delayed for the applicant. We publish notice in anticipation of the city completing the property tax negotiation and pre-zoning, and they actually approved a first reading of the ordinance and then for various reasons delayed the second reading. And last night so in any event, there's more to come, but as of the time of the agenda, we weren't able to prepare the report because the action by the city wasn't ready. So other than having it on the agenda now in case there was someone who wanted to comment on the public, there's no action.
okay. So I'm sure we will see it again. We'll go to item number 5. That's LAFCO.
Do we need to make a motion to continue?
No,
Okay.
as far as I know. Ms. Archer, we don't have to make a motion for a continuance, do we?
No, not.
Thank you. Basically, information only. So item number 5 is the LAFCO file 17-16. It's the proposed activation of the service of operating a 124-bed assisted living and memory care facility at 1600 Truesdale Drive in Burlingame. by the Peninsula Healthcare District. Ms. Payatis?
Yes, thank you. You have a staff report dated November 8th that includes the request by Peninsula Healthcare District for activation of service pursuant to Government Code Section 56824.12. And this is actually a facility that's been in planning for many years. And the requirement to comply with activation of service approval by LAFCo was something that was arrived at during the course of the municipal service review that we just completed. There was extensive discussion and documentation about the project in the municipal service review, and the staff report also contains detail about what the project is, the proposed plan for service, and funding. I would actually defer. I guess one of the things I'd like to clarify is that the municipal service, the request for activation of service was triggered by this one facility being planned and constructed and under construction by the district. The request for activation, if approved, would be approving activation of a health-related facility. So they wouldn't need to come back if in 5 years they started another type of facility. The main reason that they're required to do this is as detailed in the municipal service review and in the staff report. The district divested of hospital operations, so they're not an operator of any health-related facility now. So that's why they're coming back to you. I actually would close with that and note that Cheryl Fema, the healthcare district's general manager, is here, as well as one of their board members, if you have any questions for them.
Any questions on part of the commission? There being no questions, or is there a motion on this item? I'll make a motion. Joshua?
Public comment. Public comment. Do you want to ask for public comment on this specific item?
Is there public comment? Any?
No.
There being none. Commissioner Cosgrove?
Thank you very much. So I move that the commission certify that the activation of the new service of operating assisted living and memory care facilities is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under General Rule Exemption 15061B3.
Is there a second?
No. She seconded.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. I'll continue on. Resolution 2, right? Yeah. So I move that the commission approve LAFCo File 1716, proposed activation of the service of operating an assisted living and memory care facility as authorized by Healthcare District, enabling legislation and pursuant to Government Code Section 56824.12.
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, item number 6, just information only, just an applications that received and not certified as complete or ready for hearing. And it's a proposed annexation of 30 Holden Court, Portola Valley. I assume there's no comments on that. The item number 7 is the appointment of the chair and the vice chair for 2018. As I understand it, the vice chair currently is Mike O'Neill, and I think he becomes the chair. Correct? How do we do that now? Do we make a motion for that? Or
It has been just by general practice that vice chair becomes the chair, but it is by nomination and vote.
okay, can I get somebody to nominate Commissioner O'Neill to be the chair?
I nominate Commissioner Mike O'Neill to be the chair for 2018.
Is there a second? Commissioner Draper, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. The vice chair would normally be,
Yeah, there was an error in the staff report. The rotation has tried to just go from each type of membership. And so based on the last rotation, the vice chair now would be the public member.
and that would be Commissioner Draper.
I make a motion for Ms. Draper to be the vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so at this point, Commissioner O'Neill,
Oh, okay.
You're on.
You continue the meeting. Okay. Let's see. Next is item number 8, the appointment of a budget committee and legislative policy committee for 2018. Staff.
I'll volunteer to continue on the Budget Committee.
How many people are on the committee?
I think I'm on that.
Joshua, Commissioner Cosgrove is on it, I'm on it, and the Chair General is on it,
Okay.
Chair O'Neill.
Okay. This sounds okay to me. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the commissioners, or myself, Commissioner Cosgrove, and Commissioner O'Neill as the Budget Committee.
There's a second.
Second.
Any comments? Vote, please.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is legislative report.
Actually, that item had one more committee, which is the Legislative and Policy Committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, I know I'm on that committee right now, and
You can take yourself off it, but
yeah.
I'm on it and I will volunteer to still be on it
Okay.
unless somebody wants to do it.
Okay. And do you want to?
Who was the third member?
Was Rick?
generally it's been the, sorry, Miss Martin.
I'm an alternate, though.
No, it usually is the special, it was
Special districts.
the special district rep.
I think it was Rick.
Sheridan?
No, I know it was Rick Loman.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take over.
Oh.
Oh.
And serve.
I know I was on it, and I'm
Okay.
trying to think who the third one was.
I think it was Rick.
I think it was. I think it
I'll be
was.
the third. Can I nominate myself?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, you should have volunteered.
I'll remain unless there's someone else that wants to step up.
I wouldn't mind stepping up, but I don't know whether I can.
It's easy.
No, I mean, as an alternate.
I don't think there's any prohibition to you as an alternate serving on the committee. No.
Okay, I'd be more than happy to.
Good.
Okay. So we have 3.
3R for clarification.
Me.
Okay,
Josh
so
and-
I'll nominate Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Draper, and Commissioner Cosgrove on the Legislative Committee.
Is there a second? Second. Any comments? Please vote.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is the legislative report.
Provided in your packet was the legislative update that was given to us at the LAFCo annual conference, and that highlighted the LAFCo-related bills that were signed and chaptered. The issues that are coming up for this next session are healthcare districts, which there's going to be an effort to rewrite or clean up that enabling legislation, in particular to provide more detail to what specific services are authorized, because there's kind of vague and general description of services. And then also water, in terms of water conservation. I don't have anything to present to you today. The legislative committee would meet to look at any pending bills and make recommendations.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, that's it then. Next is a, let's see, League of California Cities article. It's time to restore opportunities for city incorporation. Western City, just no comments. Okay. Next is the League of California Association LAFCo correspondence. First off is a report on the attendance at the 2017 annual conference in San Diego. I think there was 3 of us there.
Yeah, just a quick report of that. I went to the 2 highlights for me. One was talking about healthcare districts, and our healthcare districts are in remarkably good shape compared to some of the reports that I had got out of like Sonoma County. Well, Sonoma County had a devastating fire. Obviously, we know that. But they did report on some on their healthcare districts that are having a great deal of difficulty with bankruptcies and in and out of bankruptcies. Most seem to be doing pretty well. And our own Martha Poyatos was there as well, and it was a really interesting session. The other thing I went to was the desalinization plant, and it was right next door to a power plant. It was really fascinating. We went through the power plant first, and it was really an old line plant that takes, I think they said it takes about 12 hours to actually fire up these big turbines, and they do it with natural gas, and it's going to get shut down. And the new plant is on the other side of the tracks, and it fires up in about 10 or 15 minutes. And they said the reason that they're doing that is because the California grid electricity system is switching over so much to renewables. So when when the sun isn't shining or the wind's not blowing, you better be able to supply the power right now. So that's why they're changing from one system to another. So that's fascinating. But I was really surprised at desalinization. I didn't think I anticipated there'd be all kinds of cackling, electricity and chemical processes. It'd be like Frankenstein's laboratory, and it wasn't. It was really pushing water through at high pressure through a series of filters and more greater and greater filtration. They spent on the plant $800,000 and about $200 million. I'm sorry, $800 million and $200 million for the piping that goes uphill to, storage tanks or whatever. It supplies 10% of the water for the city of San Diego. They actually, at the end of the process, they had us gave us all a glass of water, and they said distilled water doesn't taste very good, so they run it back through rocks, basically limestone, to give it the taste that we're all used to. And it actually was the same quality of water that we have in Lake Half Moon Bay and most of the counties. It was the same as Hetch Hetchy water. But the company or the plant is actually run by people from Israel. They do have a lot of experience at that. And I think that probably for the state of California, probably more jurisdictions are going to have to look at desalinization. The interesting thing is that with 100 gallons of water, they come out with 50 gallons of distilled water and 50 gallons of water that has a heavy brine concentration. So you can't just dump it back in the ocean. You have to somehow mix it with others to get that brine concentration down. So they have a kind of a system they had this pond that they were able to actually increase its circulation. Really fascinating. We also know that Santa Barbara has a desal plant that they were starting up again as well. So I just thought it was I think the future for California for cities, maybe not for farms, but for cities, probably going to be some form of desalinization. So I thought it was really fascinating. The interesting, all the special district people, especially from North Bay, talked about the losses of houses and for their colleagues. I think some of the commission said that half of their commissioners or half their staff lost their homes. It's pretty devastating for those folks up at the North Bay. That concludes my report.
And did you want to go next? Or?
Well, the most fascinating thing that I learned was not a presentation, but I talked with the LAFCo officer in Sonoma, and he said that many of the places that were burnt were unincorporated, and they had septic tanks and other things, and therefore the recovery was going to be more challenging. And the whole notion of extension of city services and LAFCo would be involved, and I had really not thought of LAFCo needing to be involved with the recovery system or process. And so I found that fascinating is how many things that they just are, and then when something like that happens, and all of these things that I don't know come into play that you never really think about, and so I was fascinated by that.
The one I found most interesting was one in regards to how LAFCO, given everybody's issues with PERS and the deficits that they're running and, employees like that, there was talk of how the different services kind of are going through LAFCo and merging and doing their JPAs or whatever, and trying to get some economy and the challenges that a lot of districts are having. And Martha had mentioned a couple here in San Mateo County that the viability is real questionable. And it was really like, how proactive does a LAFCo want to be to try to stem this off? Do it in an orderly, organized fashion, or deal with a crisis at the end of the time? And so that's actually something I was thinking we should probably put on the agenda and discuss, was the financial viability of some special districts, maybe even cities in San Mateo County. And I don't know if the rest of the commission wants to talk about that or not. But personally, I'd rather deal in a organized, methodical, not crisis-driven way of doing it. So it was an interesting speech or presentation. Okay. Let's see. Next is LAFCo request for authorization for San Mateo County Executive Director to serve on Cal LAFCO's Deputy Executive Officer, representing the coastal region.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for authorization.
Any comment? I'll just say congratulations, Martha. She was elected and selected for this position. I guess vote. Yeah. Aye. Okay, congratulations. Next is the Sphere from LAFCO, their publication. Any comments from staff or questions from commissioners?
One comment is that on the in addition to the Bay Area LAFCO executive officers periodically meeting, the clerks also meet, and so the clerks put together a little presentation or article in the Sphere about activities in their LAFCO, and so Jean contributed to that for San Mateo.
Okay. Then that's it. Okay, number 12, letter from Special District Risk Management Authority regarding President's Special Acknowledgement Award.
Nothing to add.
No comments. Okay. Let's see. Then I guess any commissioner staff reports? No. Have you made a decision on the December 20th meeting?
Basically, I've established that there would be a quorum in order to hold it. The requirement to publish notice is next week, and I need to find out from the city of Menlo Park if we want to go through all those motions, if they're going to actually have an application that can move forward. So I'll have to report back on that.
Okay, but we shall reserve the date at this point.
If you could, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, I just wanted to clarify that. Any other comment? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All right. Well, all right. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, too.
Yeah.
And if we don't meet, we're happy holidays. If we don't meet December 20th. Thank you.
Katie, what city are you from?